We are pleased to announce that the service from
Praxis
delayed by approximately 200 hours due to staff shortages, which is now fixed, is now approaching. We apologize for the inconvenience caused. Thank you.
Hello and welcome back to Podcasting is Praxis. I'm David, my pronouns are he and him.
I'm James, my pronouns are they and them.
I'm Jamie, my pronouns are he and him.
And that's it from normal cast. Everyone else is either on holiday or dying, so rip Alistair and get well soon, Rob. To plug the gap though, to plug the labour shortage that we have, we've scabbed in another podcast. Here to join us is two of the three of Well There's Your Problem, Liam and Rocz.
Hi. I'm Liam, that's Rocz.
Hi, it's Rocz. My pronouns are he and him. Yay,
my
Liam.
pronouns are also he and him.
Yeah.
My pronouns are also fuck.
Okay, yeah. My pronouns are fuck.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you for having us back.
Yes, thanks for having us back. I enjoy doing this podcast.
Yeah, me too.
Well, third time returning champions, so we'll need to come up with something even better than a challenge coin to give you. I don't know. Any suggestions, Jamie?
Challenge banknote? I don't know.
Give us a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Oh, the bumper sticker would be good, yeah.
Bumper sticker would be good. Can you do those in email, Jamie?
I don't know. I didn't know there was going to be questions.
Well,
that's how I feel most days.
Well, you're in bad news then, Liam, because we're actually going to ask you questions later. Fuck
me. All right.
No, we brought you on because we were sitting over here about a month ago and we noticed this ominous mushroom cloud kind of emanating from the US and casting a shadow. And we were like,
sorry. Yeah, our bad.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, so it was like, oh, well, I wonder what that is. And I said to David, hey, maybe we should get Liam and Rocz on to kind of explain. And he's like, I'm sure it won't still be relevant like a month from now. And
dummy.
Yeah. Fuck me and my optimism. What a prick.
In a rare moment of optimism from our David. But before we get to that, we thought, it's only fair. It's been a while. We thought maybe we'd do some news nuggets and just kind of check in on how the UK is going, just for comparison, basically, because it would be kind of churlish of us to ask you guys to explain, all the woes befalling certain parts of the US if we didn't first kind of tell you just how rubbish things are here. So,
spoiler, by the way, it is unfortunately still going.
Yeah. The UK is unfortunately still a going concern. So
yeah, I was about to say. I mean, at some point we just need to absorb you guys into the United States. I think that's the only way forward.
Special partnership, baby.
Yes,
with benevolent dictator for life, Tony Blair, for some reason.
I mean, like honestly,
just marry Baron Trump into the royal family, and that will see the impact.
I've got to say,
it wouldn't be much different.
It's kind of like grandparents moving in with their grandkids kind of vibe, It's like they get old and senile and can't look after themselves and, they end up kind of stuck in like a granny flat,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there are worse ways for the largest empire in the history of the world at one point to die, but you guys already had the Suez Crisis and ate shit then, so we're just scooping you up now.
Yeah. Continuing
we don't
to
learn
eat...
lessons.
Yeah, no lessons learning, continuing to eat shit across the decades. And honestly, like having a place to stay would be kind of welcome right now because, true story, I found out yesterday my landlord is, evicting me. I'm going to have to go. Yeah, it's always fun. Yeah, she's claiming poverty, which means she can evict me and she's going to sell the flat. So I've been looking at the UK housing market. So I thought we'd start off tonight topically
by supporting housing providers.
But no, in all seriousness, so like, UK housing market, I figured I'd look into it because, suddenly very topical and relevant. And after, I've been trying for a few days now because I kind of saw this coming, to be honest. I've been trying to get a flat to rent in where I live that that will allow pets, because I've got 2 elderly, very well behaved cats. And ironically, my landlord is very happy with them and was happy to write a letter of recommendation for me and my cats, which just tells you how fucked things are. But I cannot.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I cannot find anywhere within 20 miles of where I am that will rent and allow pets. I just can't find it anywhere. So that's looking fun. And so I thought, well, why is this the case? And so it turns out, wouldn't you know it, UK value of housing stock hit a record high of 8.7 trillion in 2002. The market is just going up and up and up, despite everything else going to complete shit. And they're estimating that maybe it'll come down sort of this year, perhaps. But, what could possibly be, driving this? Turns out that in England, and presumably in Scotland and, the other parts of the UK as well, we've hit the record low since World War II of new houses being built. So that bubble is just going to continue to inflate, baby. It's wonderful. So
no downsides?
No, none
also,
whatsoever.
You're not allowed pets because it's a slippery slope. If the landlord lets you bring in pets, what's next? Furniture?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Eat on the floor. Do what I did in my first apartment.
Yeah.
Coward.
You're gonna bring in cats? What else are you gonna bring in? Bigger cats? A leopard? An elephant? Maybe?
Trying to wrangle a jaguar in. Come on, muffins. Come on, muffins. No, muffin. Oh, he's a sweetie.
See, I was thinking
one minute you're on Zoopla, the next minute you're terrorising the parks of fucking South Ayrshire with the South Ayrshire fucking panther that only one person's ever seen.
I mean, you'd think with a name like Zoopla they'd be happy with pets, but sadly not, But yeah, so
bastard.
It's a bit rough. It's not great. But on the other hand, I've been looking at this and thinking it's a good thing I've only got cats, because for our second little news nugget, so, we've hit the lowest level of housing availability since World War II. New houses aren't being built. It's a good thing it's only cats, because some parents in England, by which we mean a staggering majority, are spending up to 80% of their pay on childcare. So,
dude, childcare is fucking unbelievably expensive anywhere. 80% doesn't even seem crazy to me. Like, it does seem crazy as like a number, but I believe it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wait till you hear the government's incredible proposed solution to this problem.
Oh, it's so good.
The kids should probably be paying their own way. That's
they should re-legalize child labor. Yes,
get them down in mind.
Which I'm gonna bet is the actual suggestion.
No, it's better than that actually.
Oh,
they are suggesting student-style loans to help solve the childcare crisis.
Get fucked.
Okay. Do you have the thing where, like we have in the United States, where student loans aren't dischargeable in personal bankruptcy?
Thanks, Joe Biden.
So I actually looked into this a while ago out of curiosity, and the answer is it's complicated, and for all of intents and purposes, probably some of it is dischargeable if you can prove genuine, distress and inability to repay. Otherwise, actually, our debt discharge laws are worse than the US.
Oh my God.
They didn't introduce those particular protections because in the UK, getting rid of debt is actually very hard, generally. So, it ends up being about the same difficulty to discharge student debt in the UK as the USA, just because in the UK, all debt is non-dischargeable unless you can prove genuine poverty, and that's the criteria for student loans.
There's no debtor's prison, but what we do is we just transform the landscape into the debtor's panopticon, and that's where you live now.
Yeah, I've got a fun story about my student loans that I think I might have mentioned before on the pod. I'm not sure, but I took out like a couple of student loans in the 90s, just before Blair came in and introduced tuition fees.
Good timing.
And when I went to, I didn't get a degree obviously because look at the fucking state of me. But then when I tried to do distance learning a couple of years back, I got a loan for the first year of the degree. But then when I tried to get a loan for the second year of the degree, they decided suddenly the policy at student loans had changed, and I wasn't allowed to get any more student loans until I'd paid off the ones from the 90s. Which weren't even held by the student loan company anymore. They'd been sold to a private company. So clearly, whichever company bought them has a friend in the government who just decided, no, do you know what? The government, like the government body, won't give you any more loans until you've paid my mate off for something he bought on the cheap.
Like a fucking loan shark.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it was student loan debt. There was a bailiff showed up at my door, well, 3 of them actually, a little over a week ago. I was mid-meeting with my job, and there's an angry knock at the door, and I was like, oh, please excuse me. And I go answer the door, and there's 3 guys in stab-proof vests, looking very, like, arms folded, like, half shouting when they kind of introduce. And they were looking, I shit you not, Jamie, this is true. They were looking for a guy named Jamie, who was a former, tenant here. And unfortunately, obviously, I'm called James. So I'm like, no, I'm sorry, mate. You're looking for former tenant. Who are you? And I'm like, oh, my name's James. And he's like, oh, James and Jamie. Do you got any ID? And I'm like, okay, calm down, mate. Hang on a second. I had to
You got a
dig
license
up.
for that?
I'm helping you, dickhead.
Yeah.
Like,
This is some like North Korea shit right here. Like,
fuck off with that, man.
You got any
You got any
license
documents
inspectors?
to prove this negative?
Yeah, I know. But we get fucking TD license inspectors will come and hassle you on the door, but you can tell them to fuck off, so it's okay. Anyway, end of the story is when I brought the passport
Fucking ridiculous country. I'm sorry.
We're about a third of the way through the stories I've got for you guys, so strap in. But yeah, I brought the passport out, and as soon as they saw that, they actually relaxed a bit, and then they were all smiley and friendly, and I'm standing there going, "You're bailiffs, fuck off! I'm not going to joke with you. Get lost." So yeah, fun, normal time.
But you're innocent, and they're basically cops.
I'd love to have like a fucking crew from the Weatherspoons Matrix turn up at my door demand to see my passport.
Well, I can't say the name of the person, but whoever the Jamie was who was here before, I hope you continue to outrun them, mate.
Yeah, it was me.
yeah.
I'm pretty well. Okay. The guy had a really cool last name. Can we just bleep this? But his last name was
Dr. Knifegun MD.
Oh, I like it.
I like that. Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's a fraud name.
Well,
That's a guy doing crimes. I don't.
Little bit of money laundering, yeah.
yeah.
Just a little bit, just a little taste,
Just a little tiny bit. We all do it.
Who was the guy that knocked on the door looking for him? Was that Bailiff McCool?
I mean, he probably thought
You guys aren't going to believe this as I'm being beaten with batons, but I have a great proposition for a buddy comedy.
One of them did have a fucking pair of shades in his pocket on his breast, next to the stab vest. So
Christ almighty.
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, and I will point out this is in Scotland in March, so he's not going to let use out of them.
It's for
So
the snowblower.
very occasionally, I'll drive Corinne to work when she doesn't take the subway and she needs to be in early, or got dropped off at a weird time, or because the L is fucked. Our subway is fucked in Philly, and the route we take goes down near the fuck. Do I have a work? Well, it doesn't matter. Goes down past the sort of secondary police headquarters. And every morning we see cops, and Corinne just boos them out of the window and gives them thumbs down
Praxis.
to make their days 5% worse.
Love it. Over here, under our new legislation, you'd probably get locked up for that, to be honest. But hey. So, well, I mean, to carry on with our story of horrors here, for people who can't afford childcare and can't afford families full stop, things have been getting worse as well, because the Department for Work and Pensions, and there's an ominous name for you, is having universal credit claimants, i.e. anyone who needs benefits of any kind. Their new policy is they're going to attend meetings up to 10 times in a fortnight, every 2 weeks. They've got to go down to the office, at least 10 times within a 2-week period. And anyone who, is late for a meeting or doesn't attend a meeting can be sanctioned, which is to say have their benefits just, turned off for a period of time, escalating to just cancelled entirely.
It's fucking public assistance, not AA. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. In Pennsylvania, they do this shit where you have to be actively applying for work. Mm-hmm. And everyone knows it's a fucking joke. And it's just I have not gotten to tell this rant, but I'm going to now because the unemployment. So, okay. I was laid off right before the pandemic started. And I got a job sort of in the pandemic and ended up being cut. and I went to apply for unemployment insurance, UI, in Pennsylvania, which I'm fucking entitled to, by the way, legally.
Yes.
And they made me upload a picture of my driver's license. Then they made me do like a facial scan to like quote prove it wasn't fraud. And I, a person with a computer science minor, like had some trouble with the instructions. And I was just like, if I'm a poor dude in York fucking County and I don't own a smartphone, what the fuck am I supposed to do?
Perish.
It's just get, yeah, exactly. Just give fucking poor people, like, I don't care. Like, what? We need another F-35 that doesn't fly upside down in the rain? No, we fucking don't. People don't need to go to fucking meetings. Just give them money. Give them $600. Give them $20 for the bar, and say, here's $620. 20 of that is for the bar. Go have a good day. Like, it just. What the fuck do you need to go to meetings for? Like, they need to tell you, oh yeah, you're unemployed, like, suck the poop out of my butt? Like, what the fuck is that? What is the possible fucking benefit of that?
Pretty much. Like,
Yeah.
it is pretty much that.
It's just to give jobs with something to do.
Yeah, and it's to sanction them. It's so that if they're late for a meeting or they miss a meeting, or if you go to a meeting which they haven't scheduled, or, for example, they cancel a meeting but don't tell you and then uncancel it. All of these are reasons that people can get temporarily sanctioned unless they can prove that they, were there with intent to actually attend the meeting. It's real kind of, Kafkaesque bullshit, essentially.
That's just fucking do-gooder bullshit nonsense.
What do they talk
Rule
about at
following
these
shit.
meetings? What do you do at the meeting?
Nothing.
Fuck all, basically.
Yeah.
You go in, they ask you, have you been looking for work? You go, yes. They go, have you been doing any kind of like incredible fraud? And you say no. And they go, oh, okay, right, well, we'll see you like in 2 days' time or a week or whenever.
Fuck
Oh my
off.
And your experience of it depends very much on whether the person who's actually talking to you likes you or not.
Yeah.
Like, I've been quite fortunate that when I've had to in the past and I've gone along to these things, when I've been unemployed, I turn up in a suit and, I'm always very polite and I'm very white and I'm on time. And, it gets me through. Like, they're like, oh yeah, you're clearly one of the good ones, so to speak. So we'll just give you the minimum fuss. But I've had like friends and others who've turned up being perfectly reasonable, many of them well-dressed and all the rest of it, and the person they've got just doesn't like them, and that's it. If the person you're meant to be having these meeting with doesn't like you, you're screwed, basically.
Yeah, I had
Awesome.
I had a work coach once who thought my email address was hilarious, and so I basically got away with murder the entire time she was my work coach, because every time I went in and she looked up my file, she went, oh, that email address makes me laugh every time, and I could just, like, you know what I mean, skate by. And then the next worst work coach I had after that made me make a more professional sounding email address.
Oh my god!
Eat shit!
Oh god!
Eat shit!
I don't like that.
But I mean, like,
that's ridiculous.
When my partner has to go in, she went in because they changed the rules. It used to be that I could claim like for both of us, and I was the only one that got harassed. But when Universal Credit arrived, you have to both have to have a joint claim so they can harass you individually. And when she went into her first meeting, the woman that assigned her as a work coach just bullied the shit out of her. So she came home in tears. And then from that point on, I went in to the meetings with her, and the woman completely changed. Like, her attitude was completely different, just purely because, like, there's a guy.
There was a witness.
A witness, but also I got the impression that because, like, I was there to keep an eye on my partner, like, the man's here, so she's just a silly woman. She just, like, what I mean?
Off.
Now she's got a man here to keep her straight. Like, we'll not need to be as harsh.
Yeah, I have that experience with Corinne in like doctor's appointments, shit like that. Where I don't know what you look like. I'm benefited from the fact that I'm 6'1", I'm a wide boy.
Yeah, I'm
but it just
tall, like, yeah.
Yeah, it just that sort of thing, doctor's appointments, going into fucking even like the DMV and just watching the transformation from, you're a stupid, silly woman here by yourself to like, oh, I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. I think they are quite threatened by the fact that I also look like I might do some appalling act of violence at any time. I try my best to sort of look like the Unabomber at any given point.
Oh, anarchist solidarity going down here. Fantastic. Love it. Well, it's
that's
pretty...
not even the only that's not the only change they're doing, though, are they? Because they're talking about getting rid of the fucking work capability assessment and transferring it into some other, somehow more maniacal, bad way.
Oh shit, I don't know about this. Genuinely, I've not got this in my...
Yeah, so they're intending on skipping out the work capability assessment if you're on universal credit. Sounds good. So you'll only get that level of extra money for the kind of disability side of things if you succumb to the same thing but for PIP instead.
What, personal independent payments?
Yep.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Absolutely
so
wonderful.
yeah, they're rolling your two miserable work capability assessments into one, but they're also making it like much more dependent on how much money you'll lose out by not getting it.
We have some especially heinous rules if you're on SSRI, not SSRI, I can't remember what it called. Social Security Disability Insurance. Mm-hmm. My dad did this for many years before Joe Biden fucking ruined everything. Where if you have a certain amount of you can't have a certain amount of assets, and if you get married, essentially you get penalized because then your income or assets is basically automatically over the limit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's designed to keep poor people poor. They don't give a fuck. They should have a nice time. That's all I can say. We're not being hosted on our podcast, so.
Yeah. All I can say is I think we've learned a valuable lesson about navigating the welfare system of any country, which is be more physically intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want, shoot me a DM. I'm available. You're paying for my snacks, but I can pay for airfare. I am the state's accountability buddy.
Yes, love it. Well,
just before we move on as well, just before we move on, I just want to point out that change to the work capability assessment, in case I've just said that and anyone starts to fucking flap and panic about it, is not being put through anything until the next Parliament apparently, so wait and see what happens with that, but they are like talking about it. It was announced in the budget.
Yeah.
Just don't want anyone like absolutely shitting their fucking pants over something I've said there. I just realised like, oh, that's maybe not as urgent that I should have maybe said it.
Okay, actually, in fairness then, David, I'll do the same. So the thing I've just mentioned is being trialled now, but it hasn't been fully rolled out yet. But, you know, it's on the cards, so steel yourselves. Yeah. Brace for impact, everyone. But you know what, Liam, on the subject of people who are looking to come to the UK, so obviously things not looking so sharp, but we still have people coming over here to seek asylum, which is fairly reasonable. You know, if you're coming from Syria or, you know, somewhere else that's in a bad way, the UK might
coming over here seeking our asylum.
Yeah.
Well, we thought, and maybe tell you a little bit about what our Home Office is up to, because they handle all the immigration, etc. So, Suella Braverman, who is the Home Secretary, has been banging on lately about the asylum system, and the government wants new powers to deal with this flood of immigrants we've got coming in, you know?
Yeah, in a small boat.
Yeah, you know, we need to... We very much need to, like Australia, stop the boats. And so what we've decided they want to do is the government wants to have significant new powers to detain and deport people as they come over. And the Home Secretary wants detention of illegal removals. So if you're here illegally and they decide that you're going to be removed, then they will lock you up right away so they can then deport you easily. No bail and no judicial review either on these. They also want to impose a legal duty to remove on local authorities and others, so that if someone is decided they can't stay here, then like immediately clap them in irons, essentially, and they must be removed. They want appeals to be significantly curtailed, and to really cap it all off, they want to write in a little exception so this small act called the Modern Slavery Act won't apply to people who are seeking asylum here.
I'm sorry, what? No, fucking back that up. What?
Oh, sorry,
the Modern Slavery Act is supposed to like prevent modern slavery. It's not like let's do it.
So if you come to your shithole decaying country, sorry,
yes. No, it's fair. We're 100% on board.
Yeah,
illegally, the legal protections I assume afforded you, by the Modern Slavery Act do not apply to you.
That's right.
Yes,
surely
burn
with
your entire country to the fucking ground. Burn it. Burn it, all of it. Every single fucking spare inch of grass, burn it.
Now, surely with improved technology, this modern slavery is much better than the old type of slavery, right?
Yeah. You only have to carry an air tag, which then zaps you with 30,000 volts. It's fucking terrific.
It's much simpler than that. You just get like a phone with like Uber or WhatsApp on it, and you're just constantly harassed by a manager from afar.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, what this basically means is, say you're trafficked over here. If they catch you as being like not here legally, then tough luck. You get no protections for being enslaved and for coming here pretty much against your will. They just, all the protections that should be afforded you will no longer apply. That's what the government wants. So
that is so fucking evil. I genuinely am having trouble processing that.
Yeah.
That is heinous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you supposed to do if you're a kid?
Yeah.
You're fucked.
I mean, kids get trafficked. It's a thing that happens.
Oh,
what the fuck are you supposed to do? You're 9 years old and you're like thrown in the back of a truck. What the fuck are you supposed to do? What the fuck kind of country is this?
There was a thing a few weeks back where it turned out, because when people come across to claim asylum, they get sent to like hotels. And there was a thing a few weeks back where it turned out like gangs had just been collecting kids from outside the hotels and vanishing them, and nobody at the Home Office had done anything about it.
Wow. I will say, and I'm sorry for interrupting so much. I don't really get angry anymore. I sort of look at this with like a bleak sort of Roz's Joker laugh when bad things happen. But like I for the first time in a long time just want to throw my monitor on the ground and just fucking scream. Like that's and this is not an exaggeration. I'm not using this as hyperbole. Nazi shit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We gotta annex the UK. We're gonna do it. We're putting four new stars on the flag.
We saved you, and this is how you repay us.
Yeah.
Like, and you're not saying anything we don't know. This is the sad thing about it.
Right,
like,
of course.
This country has gone incredibly fascist very quickly. So that's all winding its way, currently through Parliament, and it's going to pass if it hasn't completely. I think it's on the third reading now. I could be out of date on this. You can understand that
it's almost certain to pass because Labour won't oppose it.
Oh yeah, well,
Labour
definitely.
will do press conferences about like, oh yeah, it's terrible, it's a disgrace, like our national image is at stake here. We're doing this like horrendous Nazi shit, but only because like Gary Lineker said so first. Yeah, but they wouldn't change anything. They would do the same thing. They would just like finesse the PR a bit better.
Right, the detention centers would have a sensory room, right?
Yeah.
Well,
they would hire more female guards, if you will.
Yeah.
Well,
They would
it's
ask
funny
your
you guys...
pronouns before they deported you.
Yeah.
Well, no, actually, they wouldn't do that.
No, they would not do that.
Dear God. But I tell you what, it's funny you guys should mention PR and detention centres, because on this topic, the Home Secretary has recently been photographed in Rwanda. At the construction site.
Oh, I saw this photo.
Yeah, she's been photographed in Rwanda at the construction site for the new internment camps where we'll be shipping asylum seekers and illegal entrants.
Are we allowed to call them internment camps and not fun zones?
I don't know. I'd have to check with a libel lawyer. But what I can say is that she was photoed laughing uproariously,
jubilantly. Yes.
In front of like this camp being built. And yeah, so, that's great. Anyone who comes over, we're going to, in the first instance, deport them to Rwanda. And never mind the fact that Rwanda is like anti-gay and has like all these huge problems with safety, where you might feasibly get an asylum seeker from Rwanda wanting to come to the UK. Doesn't matter. We'd ship them to Rwanda, then their claim would be heard there. And only if they were somehow, while being held in confinement in Rwanda, able to, make their case, would they then be allowed to come to the UK.
We're doing that shit with Mexico, and it's fucking heinous.
Oh yeah,
applying for asylum is a human right. I don't understand. I'm not often this kind of person, especially in the United States with politics. But like, there is still some part of me that believes like you will have to answer at least for decency. Like, there's some sort of baseline human decency you have to do. Mm-hmm. And like, seeing this is just like, I don't really believe in a God, but like, I hope that there is one, just so you're sent to the eternal gates of hell.
Yeah.
I can't fucking believe this shit. This is
Well,
Jesus fuck.
To make you feel better, like our
No.
our parliamentary, our House of Commons may be terrible, but we have a House of Lords, a non-elected chamber, right, which is meant to act as like checks and balances. And so to maybe help contextualize this, would you be surprised to know that it recently came out that there's a secret House of Lords circle shown to be working with the far right in a coordinated and structured way to change and
I didn't know there was a
legislation.
secret one.
Huh.
Yeah, no.
Wow.
It
Who
was-
would have thunk?
Yeah,
Who
no,
would've
There's
thunk it?
776 in the House of Lords. That's too many fucking
less
people.
than it used to be.
Like, that's 740 of those people need to have a nice time.
and I
It's
think
such a good system though, because like if the House of Lords somehow looked like it was going to oppose the government, there's nothing stopping the Prime Minister from just adding another 600 Lords that were on his
Which
side.
is objectively pretty funny.
Yeah. Plus the House of Commons can just override them. It takes a little bit, but they can just go no. But I mean, still, they've been doing solid, good work for fascists in there, because there's been a group called, and I really am not making this up, the New Issues Group, the acronym for which I'm 100% convinced is intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they basically have been working through the House of Lords, coordinating like with far right speakers and various others, coordinating statements in the House of Lords, getting questions raised, doing reviews of bills. So like basically their WhatsApp logs were leaked, and we all got to look behind the curtain to realize they've been at this for years. And it's just
Do you think
pretty
the
grim.
government might fall over if WhatsApp turned off for a week? 'Cause
Oh,
every
yeah,
time
100%.
every time we hear about like the most heinous shit imaginable going on, it's always through WhatsApp.
Yeah, I'm looking at, so we've got Malcolm Pearson, who kind of looks like a parody of a Nazi. And then we've got Baroness Cox, who I assume was raised from the dead at some point. That lady, like, I don't want to be sexist, but that lady is fucking haggard.
Yes. They're all extraordinarily normal, frankly.
Being crypt kept will do that to you.
Yeah, there's some sort of, those like reanimation tanks they have in Star Wars.
Yeah.
I assume that's sort of what we got going on here. Am I off base in that?
No, not entirely wrong. Like we don't know what the UK equivalent of adrenochrome is, but they're definitely getting it.
Oh, they're harvesting it. Whatever the fuck it is, they're harvesting it.
They don't get the good supply over there. We got the good supply in the States. You get like the seconds, I think.
Yeah, not enough of our pizza restaurants have basements.
But yeah, no, so just to kind of put it in, it's actually got an international component, a surprise, because among an array of Conservative Party MPs, aristocrats, bishops, businessmen and journalists were high-profile far-right figures, including Geert Wilders from the Netherlands, Tommy Robinson from here, and US anti-Islam activist Pamela Geller. So,
you want a face that's been pickled, Pamela Geller. She's a good one.
So yeah, this shit's got international reach. It's not the best. But I mean, look at it this way: if the far right, if the Nazis are taking over UK, at least our trains will run on time. And in particular, we've got an HS.
That's an urban myth.
It was actually not the train schedules were not very good.
I'm loving you guys immediately picking up the bait I put down without giving me time to finish the gag. It's so good. But we have this thing called HS2, which is meant to be this big expansion of a rail line over here, which is meant to basically connect London to the north of England properly. I mean, north of England being, probably among the most deprived areas of the UK. But wouldn't you know it, it's been delayed another 2 years. And not only has it been delayed, but the scale of it has been cut. They've cut back funding and said, actually, those stops we were going to build, we're just not going to build them. We're not going to connect the cities in the north. We're just going to connect London to a little bit like Birmingham, etc., that we want to connect to. But it gets even better because a new thing's come out this week to say that it's being used to screw over Wales. And this is hysterical. So in the UK, if money is spent just on England, then Scotland and Wales get a proportion of it to kind of top them up so that, in theory, it's called the Barrett formula, in theory, they don't fall behind, right? And so what the UK government have done is they have claimed that this trail of train tracks that they're supposed to be building, which explicitly is only in, like, England, they've claimed that it will benefit Wales as well. and so they don't need to give Wales any money for building this in England?
Oh my God! I mean, maybe in the original scope that could have been true, but the way this thing has been scaled back so much,
Well,
Just wait for the government project Singularity when they decide that HS2 is just going to be a single Ajax.
It's going to be one train that runs once a day.
Not even once a day,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah, 3 times a week.
3 times a week. You know how it goes. That's right.
But the lovely thing about it is apparently HS2 never went anywhere near Wales at all. They've just claimed it. They said, it'll have economic benefit for Wales, and that means we don't need to give Wales £5 billion. So, yeah, fun. All good. We can't even do the trains right over here. So...
Yeah, you could make an argument that maybe by alleviating traffic on a West Coast main line, you would have some tangential benefit to Wales. But the thing is, they have scaled it back so far that most of those benefits are gone, and it's just a high-speed train from London to Birmingham and nothing else.
Yep. So,
Yeah, but what's Wales going to do with £5 billion anyway? They'll just spend it on like choirs and like mines. So
one presumes, yeah.
yeah.
So that's it. That's your whistle-stop tour of the UK. Has it gotten better since you last were on and heard from us, or?
I don't know. I'm still on my. The United States needs to annex Britain for humanitarian purposes.
Yeah. If ever there was a regime that needed changed.
Yeah, you need regime change.
I mean, we are on like the 20th
People
anniversary.
cry out for freedom.
Yeah.
Yes.
We are on like the 20th anniversary of Iraq, so I'm not suggesting dropping heavy ordnance on London, but I'm not suggesting it either. So
I think it's sort of a reverse War of 1812,
Yeah. War Plan Red, let's go, baby.
So, speaking of like reverse and bizarro things, I've been, as I said at the start, we've been hearing some pretty rowdy stuff about what's happening with the trains over there. Particularly, like I heard something there was like Congress involved, and like there was evil unions, and it all just seemed a little bit confusing. So we thought we'd get you guys on tonight to explain to us, just in basic terms, Roz, in a US context, what is a train and how does it work?
Okay, so in the United States, trains carry freight. That's like the main thing trains do here. They carry freight. There's some passenger trains, especially where I live in the Northeast and in California. Some other places, there's some okay to fair passenger service, but most of the country, it's just freight. Trains carry freight. They carry a lot of freight. They move it from vaguely near point A to vaguely near point B, and the freight railroads have been having, they're all privatized. Everything's private. They own the tracks. They own the trains. They own the employees, basically. And they sort of, they've been having some problems recently.
Yeah, so like over here, our track is, I believe, owned by Network Rail, and someone correct me if I'm wrong on this. So there's at least nominally a bit of like government involvement. But my understanding is in the United States, all the government involvement is strictly non-benevolent. And I think this led to, like, what drew our attention, as I said, was the mushroom-shaped cloud that appeared on February 3rd in this little town called Eastern Palestine, or East Palestine, was it?
It's actually East Palestine, apparently, because it's Ohio.
Gotta do it wrong.
Yes.
Was that near to, like, Glasgow or something like that as well?
Or Versailles, Pennsylvania, yes.
I think the worst one is Calais in Maine.
Yeah.
It's spelled like Calais.
No.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Just using the British tourist in France pronunciation there.
Yeah.
Saying it louder and slower to get your point across. Love it.
America did start as Brits abroad, so fair enough.
It's true.
And the good bits were all German.
So I guess the way you look at this East Palestine derailment, I guess I feel like everyone sort of knows what happened at this point. It's sort of been in the media for a little bit now, but Norfolk Southern, which is one of our major railroads, our Class 1 railroads, you call them, one of the four, which are Union Pacific, Burlington Northern Santa Fe, Norfolk Southern, and CSX Transportation, and Kansas City Southern, but they're going to go away pretty soon. They're being merged into Canadian Pacific. They had this major derailment in the town of East Palestine, Ohio. It was at fairly high speed. It was due to a condition called a hot box, which is an overheated axle, which is one of the oldest problems in railroading. One of the most solved problems in railroading as well.
I was just about to ask that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not something that happens. It's not something that causes catastrophic derailments anymore. This is sort of you look at this problem and you look at how obvious the problem was and how it happened, and you're kind of like, this is like cholera or polio came back. This is not a problem that's supposed to happen anymore.
Yeah, and yet.
Yeah, and yet, they Here we are. So the train derailed just on the outskirts of town. It put a bunch of hazmat on the ground, hazardous materials, including a couple tank cars of vinyl chloride, which 4 days after the derailment occurred, it was still the wreck was still burning. The tank cars were heating up. This decision was made to vent off all this dangerous vinyl chloride because, well, that's better than it exploding. And that's what the big mushroom cloud was. It was the whole thing looked extremely ugly. It was extremely ugly. There was a lot of nasty chemicals spilled. And then, afterwards, it's kind of like everyone was like, how could this possibly happen? Like, what happened here? This is not supposed to happen anymore. This is not like the 70s when this stuff happened every other week.
I can only presume, with it being vinyl chloride, that the net effect of this was just that music got a lot more high fidelity, and a lot of music nerds all moved in that direction, and there were no bad problems came out of it.
Black is fine. Shut up.
Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about the horrible, dangerous, toxic chemicals.
Don't breathe that in.
Don't breathe that. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I saw sometime after it, people going out to their local streams and stirring them with branches and watching what looked like a colours of a rainbow bubbling to the surface and things like this.
Yeah, lots of fish kills. It was a pretty big toxic release overall. I mean, you're not looking at something negligible. You're looking at something which is pretty serious. Although, we're at the point at this point where most of the environmental remediation has been done. So it's not like some people were saying this is going to render all of Ohio uninhabitable permanently.
It already is.
Well, okay, yeah.
But it was, my understanding is this was a one and done, right? And there's been no comparable events since.
Well, what's been interesting has been sort of the media attention to the constant low rumble of derailments, which has, always been present because American railroads have an unusually high tolerance for derailments in general. This is owing to the fact that they are private.
Did I see something about how the problem was caused by Civil War era braking systems?
Okay, so this is an interesting problem here. There was an article, there were a few articles that came out saying, why didn't we do this regulation which would have improved braking systems on trains? What I'm sort of I read some of the same stuff and I got a very, very different story. So American freight trains, they run on the Westinghouse air brake system. This was invented just after the Civil War. It is very, very reliable. It is almost entirely fail-safe. It is, it's a good system. Every single railroad car in the United States uses a Westinghouse air brake, right? And there was a regulation that was proposed in 2014-ish that would have said, well, for certain trains carrying hazardous materials, you need to upgrade to this newer braking system, an electronically controlled pneumatic brake, or ECP, which is basically the same braking system, but it now runs based on a microchip that's on the car and an electrical line that runs down the train. So rather than the signal for braking propagating at the speed of sound, it propagates at the speed of light. This was only for a certain type of train that would be, one of these big unit trains, we call them, where the train is only carrying one type of thing. You would equip all those cars with this new braking system, and theoretically this would provide you with better performance in braking. It would provide you with more information about the train more readily, because again, you got the microchip on every single car. Yeah. Crucially, it would let you fire a lot of carmen, who are the people who inspect the car. This is where I deviate from the line, is that this was a labor productivity thing. This was not a safety thing.
I mean, I can't find it. Yeah. It seems difficult to imagine that a private company would want to implement a change in policy to reduce the amount of labor required. I mean, surely...
Can you believe it?
Yeah, it just seems a bit odd. Surely they'd want to focus on safety first, right?
Yeah, well, this was this system was tried in like 2007, 2008, when the railroads were a lot less shy about capital investment. They tried to equip a number of trains that were these unit trains, right? So like trains that just carried oil or train that's just carried coal with these ECP brakes. They sort of gave up on it, largely because the technology didn't work very well. It would do things like if two trains passed each other, there was enough electromagnetic interference that they would both automatically apply emergency braking.
You're shitting.
Yeah, no, it was. I read into this and I was like, oh, this sounds like not good technology.
And what a surprise!
Yeah, so the that was one of the problems. Another one of the problems is sort of when you're looking at trains that are unit trains, they all carry one sort of thing. Your ability to brake quicker makes a lot of sense. When you look at trains that are mixed trains, such as NS-32N that derailed in East Palestine, you're a lot more worried about how to stop the train rather than your ability to stop it quickly, because the weight distribution is weird. If you slam on the brakes instantly, that may cause the derailment you're trying to prevent.
Yeah.
So ECP doesn't really help you very much there. And one of the reasons why the railroad sort of gave up on this technology is we came up with this new thing, distributed power, which is where you have, a locomotive at the front of the train, you have a locomotive in the middle of the train, you have a locomotive in the back of the train. Now when I apply the brakes, I'm applying it from 3 locations at once rather than from the front, so the signal to brake propagates from those different locations rather than from the front, and you can stop the train a lot quicker. So this is another reason why I'm kind of like, okay, we talk about Civil War era braking systems, which was something that FRA head Sarah Feinberg said back in 2013 or so. I mean, I don't know why these trains are running around on this Stone Age technology called wheels. But yeah, the ECP thing is a big red herring, and it's not used very commonly anywhere in the world. Some of the newest Chinese high-speed trains have it. There's some sort of conveyor belt style iron ore train operations in Australia that use it, but there's some commuter trains in Britain that use it. That's about it.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't like this Stone Age technology of the wheel which caused the derailment, like what actually caused the derailment then in practical terms?
So most directly, you're looking at, again, you have a hot box, you have an overheated axle. There's some bearing failed on the axle. It heated up over the course of its trip from St. Louis to Pittsburgh. That was the route the train was going. And because of the way friction works, of course, as the train goes faster, the axle heats up more. So you can see on camera the train went through Salem, Ohio, about 50 miles an hour. You can see on a security camera that the train was on fire. That's about 20 miles west of East Palestine.
That's incredible work, really.
Yeah.
So ordinarily, what's supposed to happen then is that it goes through something called a defect detector. These are trackside sensors. They're about every 20 miles or so. They have a temperature sensor on them that says, hey, the train's on fire. You should stop. And for whatever reason, this one did not pick up this very significant defect, because there are sort of ways in which these are calibrated that would say, it might phone the office and say, hey, there's a problem on this train, but you should monitor this. But once the axle is actively on fire, that should instantly radio the crew and say, you need to stop this train now.
Something's on fire, right?
Yes. So anyway, it went about 20 miles with this car on fire. It got through East Palestine. In fact, as far as I'm aware, it got through the second defect detector at East Palestine.
Jesus.
And the crew got word to stop the train, but it derailed while they were stopping the train, like literally seconds after they got the message to stop the train.
So if the first defect detector had worked, it probably would have avoided the incident.
Oh yeah, it would have been fine.
Yeah,
nothing would have happened. You'd been like, okay, we got to stop the train. We got to extinguish the fire, or the fire might have extinguished itself because it wouldn't have had the friction as the heat source. Yeah.
So you said the hot box was like one of the most solved problems in railway engineering. How exactly? I assume that because normally the way these things go is the solution to prevent that is cut as a money saving thing. So how simple is the solution for that?
So, okay, the biggest source of hot boxes way back in the day was the old form of railroad bearing, the plane bearing or the friction bearing, which is where you have an axle, right? The axle of the train car. It's in a box. The box is filled with oily rags. That's your lubrication. That obviously caused a lot of fires. This was replaced by the roller bearing. Starting in the 1930s, roller bearings did not have hotbox problems as frequently, like orders of magnitude less problems.
Yeah.
And this eventually, by the early 90s, we completely outlaw these older types of bearings, the friction bearings. Everything is roller bearings now, and they just don't have the problem very often. The other old-fashioned way that you solved this problem is you had the caboose, right? Where a guy sits, he looks out over the front of the train, over the whole train, and if he sees it's on fire, he says, we should probably stop the train.
Yeah.
We don't have that anymore. Now we have something called the end of train device that does a lot of the same stuff. And we have these trackside defect detectors, which are, they're about every 20 miles or so. And, they catch these problems. And I guess hopefully they catch these problems,
Yeah.
And in this case, for whatever reason, it was not caught. And this could be because of the way they're calibrating the defect detectors. This could be, they just said, the train's 40 miles from the yard. We'll fix it there. There's all kinds of stuff that could have happened here. The real question is, why did this defect detector not work? And I think, ultimately the answer is probably going to come out to be, well, there's some kind of cost cutting. We don't know what yet.
Yeah.
Or they were like, maybe we should start ignoring these hazards in the interest of getting the trains out quicker.
Yeah.
Or we'll service them less frequently or some shit like that. Yeah.
Deferred maintenance, baby.
Yes,
it's our favorite.
It's wild that the one of the better solutions to this problem is just put an extra guy on the train.
Yes,
because that can't be in a reasonable world. That can't be too heinously expensive a solution. But
so this is an interesting one because one of the we're having some legislation come out of this about improving railroad safety, which is like about increasing fines and stuff like that. Originally, it was going to also in state and federal law that you need two-man crews, that you need two men in the locomotive, right? That's been taken out. Now two-man crews are something that demonstrably lessened the severity of this incident, because once the train derailed, the conductor ran back, uncoupled all the good cars, and pulled the front half of the train away from the derailment so all that stuff couldn't catch fire. You can't do that if there's just one guy.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, like, I guess part of my thinking on this is, obviously, like, you know, so we've had this thing fail. Why is it a case of, like, there were signs that it was gonna fail that could have been caught, but they got missed because of, you know, deferred maintenance and all of that? Like, did they cut back on the actual servicing of trains before it left the yard, that kind of thing?
There's some stuff here I know, but it's not on the record yet, unfortunately.
Damn. Okay.
So yeah, but the you know, one of the big problems that's been identified so far is turns out these defect detectors are completely unregulated.
Wait,
there's
what?
no regulation.
Yeah, buddy.
There's no regulation
buddy.
at all concerning defect detectors. It's all entirely at the railroad's discretion.
So hang on, you could basically be like, hey, you know those ones that we use to detect bombs in Afghanistan on cars?
Yeah.
We're
gonna buy.
We've got them.
Yep.
We've repurposed them.
Those ones our water company still use to detect leaks. Those ones.
Dowsers. Yeah.
I'm gonna douse the train as it goes past to determine whether
Yep.
it's on fire.
Yep. More or less.
Holy shit! Like you'd think there'd be some basic. Well, I suppose no, you wouldn't, right? Obviously, because it's all like, you know, deregulated and privately
Stupid.
owned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Grand. I'm starting to get the picture here.
Well, theoretically, it's in the railroad's best interest to not put a train on the ground. It's generally speaking, the incentive structure here is that the train should stay on the rails, which means you want the defect detector to work.
So a perfectly rational actor acting in a market with perfectly spherical trains is not going to put any trains on the ground. Got you. Cool. Like, yeah, boggles the mind. So, like, I also understand that, you know, the trains are quite long, these freight trains. And they've been getting longer. So that's another reason that they're having to rely on technology rather than having a guy at the front and a guy at the back. Like, so how long, you know, obviously this is a very broad question and feel free to school our ignorance here, but how long is a typical freight train in the US at this point?
So
Miles.
you can get up to I think they get longer as you go farther west, but you might see a train that's 3 miles long right now.
Fucking hell.
But yeah, so you're talking 150, 200 cars. You're talking these trains have gotten longer and longer, and that's because the railroads are very much they're obsessed with productivity, right? You want more cars moved with fewer employees, fewer locomotives. You want to it's all in service of this thing called the operating ratio, which is essentially how much of every dollar goes back to running the railroad. So if I say I have an operating ratio of 80%, that means 80% of every dollar I bring in goes back to running the railroad. Right now we're at record low operating ratios of like 60%, which is really great for investors, but railroad workers are not having a great time with this, and the quality of service has suffered. It just sort of everything is sort of going downhill except the profit margins.
Yeah. But what is a few irradiated wastelands in the face of line go up?
This is true. Yes.
Well, I mean,
good point.
They call them investment vehicles for a reason, right?
Yes. The vehicle. It is. You see that train go by, you just see dollar signs.
Right until it derails.
So the other thing I wanted to ask was, you said because the way obviously it appeared to us over here on like seeing news reports was that this one train derailed, and and then shortly thereafter there was another equally serious incident every 20 minutes for like a few weeks. But what you're saying is that sort of shit just happens all the time.
Yeah, that just happens all the time. Yeah, that has been happening this whole time.
Because this one particularly severe incident that made the news, suddenly like all the others make the news as well, which is mildly terrifying, it has to be said.
Well, the other thing is, objectively speaking, the railroads have many fewer derailments than they used to. Yeah. We have about, what is it, like 1,000, 1,400 or so derailments a year. 10 years ago, that was like 3,000. Which is, 10 a day. And a lot of them are very, very minor. But again, all of a sudden, there's been this heightened scrutiny because, I am not sure what a comparable statistic is, or if there's a way to get a comparable statistic. But in other countries, this is not. You do not tolerate this level of derailment. Yeah. Trains do not derail this frequently anywhere else in the world.
Because it seems like they would have to be running these, like the margins like on running these trains would have to be like absurd for it to be fine to have like 10 derailments a day and just eat that as a cost.
Well, one of the things is running these trains, the margins are absurd just because you're running them so long. I mean, since we've the management philosophy in the railroad industry right now is something called precision scheduled railroading, where you run neither precision nor scheduled and barely railroading. But essentially the management philosophy has been, okay, we're going to try and minimize the amount of time train cars spend in the rail yard, which, okay, that's good. And rather than doing that by running trains faster and better, we're going to run trains longer and worse. We're going to reduce the amount of time every train is inspected before it leaves the yard. We're going to build the trains in such a way that it's much easier for them to derail. The train.
We're going to fuck over Amtrak in the process.
You also fuck over Amtrak. This is true. I mean, for instance, the train that derailed in East Palestine was put together in such a way that it was very prone to derailment or pulling apart. In its case, the train actually split itself in half somewhere in Indiana, I believe, just because of the way the train was handled. It broke itself in half. And this is what happens when you put trains together, not with respect to how the train will handle, right? You put the heavy stuff up front, you put the light stuff in back. In this case, you are putting the train together in such a way that it's easier to put together and break apart in each yard it stops at.
Optimized.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, you have situations where the train will, it becomes very easy to derail the train by doing absolutely nothing.
So hang on a second. I'm trying to wrap my brain around this. They not only did this train catch on fire and the fire get missed and it actually derail, etc., but before this happened, in an adjacent state, it split apart due to momentum being improperly distributed. Did they have to stop and put it back together and then keep going?
Yeah, they stopped and put it back together and kept going. That's train splitting apart is not the most uncommon thing in the world.
It's just
don't you feel safe?
Yeah. No, it's really this is kind of mind-boggling because at no point during this did anyone spot, hey, that bearing looks like it's a little bit red hot. Damn.
Again, I know some stuff that I'm not allowed to say.
No, but by all means.
Tell us, you fucker.
This might be a point to plug and say, hey, check out future episodes of Well, There's Your Problem, I guess.
Yeah.
So, on the actual political side of this, because obviously this stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? You don't get this massive deregulation and this squeezing of profit margins and this, basically I'm presuming grinding of people's lives into dust as a consequence. I heard there were some union disputes that were going on just until like just before Christmas last year, mainly because our media was bleating about like Christmas treats being delayed or something like that. Did this have anything to do with what's happened, or
It's incredible how direct of a line between the union disputes and this incident there is, because the unions were complaining about bad work-life balance. They were complaining about overwork in general, all this stuff, not being able to. They didn't have time to do their jobs, and you look at an incident like this, and it's directly caused by all those problems. Exactly the thing that the union said was going to happen happened. And just looking at the way that they were thrown under the bus by Joe Biden, and then you get your comeuppance only, or a small town in Ohio gets the comeuppance just a few months later. Is it's incredible to watch, and I mean there's. It's just so obvious is the thing. It's like there's some kind of, I don't know, dramatic irony you might want to call it, and yet here we are, and there's not. Doesn't look like anyone's going to do anything about it. And in fact, I believe that the main effective clause of the legislation they want to pass, the two-man crew rule, is being stripped out. So this is. Ugly.
I mean, this is all very disappointing to hear, because I was led to believe that Joe Biden was the savior of the world.
Was the greatest president on labor in history. Yeah.
He finally vanquished the orange man who was bad.
Yeah.
So.
No. What he's doing is he's taking vengeance against all the people who voted for the orange man, and that's why and Jesus like it have to suffer. Those are the worst fucking posts I've seen on Twitter from America this year.
Yeah, they're fucking embarrassing.
I mean, we can't really throw stones here, because you see similar shit like, post-Brexit over here, the number of fucking posts online going, fuck the north of England, they all voted for Brexit, they get what's coming to them kind of shit. So it's like, it's a universal disease in the Anglosphere. But, it's pretty
but as an aside, all of the fucking pricks down south who are posting that fuck the north of England, they're going to get their fucking heads absolutely battered if it kicks off. We will fucking destroy them.
I mean that's the whole political spectrum right now is can I make my enemies suffer? I can't do anything positive for myself.
That's it. Right, no, you're absolutely right.
What's the problem with Kansas has been updated to be what's the problem with the United States. Love it.
So, looking towards the future, what do you think? Is there any sort of big technological solution that's going to make trains much safer? Like replace them with the Cybertruck, which can pull infinite mass, for example?
This is
not eating shit. Yeah.
I mean, this is an interesting question, I think, especially considering that, one of the things that has come out is like, well, we need these ECP braking systems, right? And my argument was to be that would make the transportation system as a whole less safe.
Yeah.
Because once you're mandating ECP brakes on these chemical trains, all of a sudden these shippers are forced to install ECP brakes on their rail cars, because the railroads are not in the business of owning railroad cars anymore. That's the shippers.
It's all leased. Right.
Yeah, everything is leased from banks or rail car leasing companies. That's one of the reasons why I think the pushback hasn't been as strong as you might have expected. All of a sudden, rather than re-equipping your fleet with these brakes, you might say, well, maybe these railroads have been assholes to me for a long time. They don't deliver my stuff on time, blah, 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 blah. Maybe I'll just ship these horribly dangerous chemicals by truck. And then rather than getting an East Palestine, once every 10 years, you get a vinyl chloride truck smashing into a farmhouse just off of I-80 like twice a week. So this is another reason why I push back strongly on the whole ECP mandate.
But surely you could solve that problem with that hat that detects when the driver's fallen asleep and blares a horn at him.
I'm loving this image of us actually having, like, you know, hazardous waste being hauled by an Elon Cybertruck and just, like, plowing through, like, a kindergarten or something like that, you know? Like,
yeah, and then it turns out that you thought the vinyl chloride was bad. Wait until the battery catches fire.
Just wait.
What if Hyperloop, but purely for liquids?
That's called a pipeline. We already have that.
Hypergoop.
Yeah, you have it, but is it disruptive?
That's a good point.
Yes, would it burst? Yes.
We could run the liquid through the pipeline at 700 miles an hour.
Into it.
Nord Stream 2 wants a word.
I've been reprimanded for bringing that up on the pod previously. Just totally off topic. I actually got a DM, someone going, "Oh, you can't bring up the Nord Stream 2 stuff. It was all disproven, etc., etc., etc." I looked into it, and without naming names, they worked for Bellingcat. So,
oh my god!
You know.
But in terms of technological solutions, we already have all the technology that we need to solve this problem. This is a solved problem. This is like, what you need is, well, in this case, I guess most directly, maybe some federal regulation of defect detectors, but what you need is adequate staffing, and you need a railroad system that is not oriented for the maximum amount of profit. I mean, if you had, as I mentioned earlier, if you had a cholera outbreak or a smallpox outbreak, you wouldn't say, let's try and find new technology to solve this problem. You would say, take the handle off the pump and get some vaccines or something for the smallpox. You know, these problems are very solved, and I don't. You can throw as much technology at this problem as you want. The problem is that railroads are run for profit, and as long as they're run for profit, especially in today's, this has always been true, but today's you really need that shareholder return to compete with investment on, like, I don't know, an app that makes farts or something. All of a sudden you need such high returns that you start to skip on stuff like really basic safety. Railroads are not like tech companies. They actually have to do something in order to make money, which investors don't like.
What I'm hearing is this is a golden opportunity for a tech bro to invent some sort of GPT on the blockchain with which to solve the problem of staffing on the railroad.
Why not?
They're trying.
Why not? Give us 10 million.
Yeah, what if a chatbot guessed whether the train was on fire? How accurate would that
be? Yeah.
George, you joke, but I'm sure there's some AI statistical analysis to try and determine when your trains are going to be on fire.
Oh yeah.
No, it'll just constantly tell you it's on fire. It's like that fucking guy that was like, pretend to be Skynet and make me be afraid of you, and then immediately did that shit.
But yeah, I think the solution here, unfortunately, is nationalization. That's the only thing you can do if you want to solve this problem, is not to run the railroads for profit. I'm very skeptical about stuff like we need much better regulation because, well, there's your problem episode is coming out about this shortly. Railroads have historically subverted regulations in extremely creative ways just because they want to, and because it's easier than complying with the spirit of the regulation. You can comply with the letter. You look at stuff like, let's say, the episode that's going to be coming out is about the Naperville wreck of 1949. Or 1946, I forget which.
49,
was it 49? Okay, that resulted in a regulation that either the railroads had to improve their signaling system, or they had to limit all trains to 80 miles an hour. Well, guess which one they picked.
Sorry, it was 46. My bad.
Yep.
It's coming up April 25th. Yeah. And they picked just going at 79, which is why trains suck so much.
Or after the Chatsworth derailment in 2007, 8, something like that, Congress mandated they needed to install positive train control on every main line in the United States to improve railroad safety. And what they did is they, rather than getting a signaling system that complied with the regulations off the shelf from like Europe, like the European train control system, they came up with their own stuff. So now there's like 7 incompatible PTC systems in the United States, and they all run on GPS, which means they can't actually tell what track a train is on, because it's not that accurate. So, you know, every time you tell these guys to do something, they're like, yeah, we'll do that, sure. And then they just do something incredibly fucking stupid. This is why I'm very...
If there's one thing like coders love to do, it's create their own standard.
Yes.
Like, well, we need a thing to control trains. Like, I've got some great ideas about how to do that. Do you want to look at what anyone else has done? No. That would just slow me down.
Yeah. I will not be going anywhere.
Well, you know, if they had gone with another system, that would have required investing in some infrastructure, when instead you could rely entirely on GPS. Ugh.
Yeah. Have they considered just like reclassifying all the lines so they're not main?
Yes. Yeah, no, that has happened. That's not even that's not even a joke.
It sounds like a joke, but it is not.
No. Oh, I love innovation.
That certainly is definitely a disruptive activity to all the people in town. That's what those lines are on. Yeah, great. Okay, cool. So presumably, like, you know, I guess the last thing is obviously the unions. They're like going on strike about this. Like, I heard something about maybe they would be on strike. So I guess they're back up in arms again. Yeah.
So railroad unions are basically not allowed to go on strike, owing to the Railway Labor Act. Yeah. You know, this is a very old piece of labor legislation. Railroad workers are governed entirely differently from all other labor in the United States. You know, so they are essentially barred from striking until there's like this long arbitrative process. You know, that's what happened last year with the big threatened strike, is that only until every other option was exhausted could railroad workers go on strike. And, you know, eventually leadership managed to convince them not to. You know, it's and the Presidential Emergency Board, well, that was the main thing, was the Presidential Emergency Board was like, yeah, no, you have to accept this agreement. You can't go on strike.
Force them to.
You know,
real fucking friend of labor.
Yeah, it was. So this is. I don't know if they could go on strike if they wanted to. I don't know exactly what, you know, they would do if railroad workers went on strike, because I don't know if you're gonna send the National Guard out to force the workers back in the locomotives at gunpoint.
I mean, the worst case scenario, you just get a bunch of Pinkertons setting themselves on fire. So. Yeah.
What we would do over here is just get the army to drive the trains, I think.
Yeah.
See, that
was genuinely floated.
Yeah.
This is the thing. There's not enough guys to do it. There's so many trains.
Or hire was it hire agency staff was another one to replace our drivers that were on strike.
That would go
initially
great.
They were talking about, initially they spoke about bringing the army in. And then everyone kind of pointed out, no, that would be really dumb. There's no trains in the army. How would they possibly know? So then they defaulted to, well, obviously there's trains in some sort of temporary agency work. So they get the train to work. They'll be able to drive it. It's fine. And then obviously like all of that fell apart.
Get Twitch to like unveil a new category that's a combination of real life and Microsoft Train Simulator.
Yeah, we're gonna get a bunch of kids who are really good at Microsoft Train Simulator out. Yeah.
Boomers.
So I also heard, like, separate from all of this, there'd been this whole thing about maybe actually giving your train drivers sick days, because we get sick days.
They get one more sick day.
One more sick day. Yeah. So the way railroad workers' sick days work, had worked for a while, is essentially you if you drive a freight train, your schedule is completely arbitrary. You know, what happens is you're on call for a certain amount of time. That's most of the time. And you have to be glued to your phone. You get a call They say you need to come into the yard and take this train somewhere else with like 2 hours notice at any time of day. Could be the middle of the night. It could be, it's on. This is the scheduling part of precision scheduled railroading, right? None of the trains run on anything that has a semblance of a schedule. So
optimize.
You're essentially on call 24/7. Now you do get days off. The thing is, you don't know their days off until after they've happened.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, and one of the things about this, forcing the railroads to give workers sick days is that there is already a system for that. It's just it's not well enforced. Like you can take time off. You have to schedule it like months in advance, but you can take time off. The problem is the railroad can also just say, 2 days before your vacation to Europe. Or somewhere like that, the family's all excited. They can say, yeah, no, you can't take those days off. And one of the problems with the union agreement, or the agreement that was forced by the Presidential Emergency Board, all this new sick time is sort of subject to the same rules, so it doesn't really matter.
Love to schedule my sick time off knowing that I'm going to get the flu in 5 months time. And
yes.
I finally get the flu.
Right.
I finally get the flu and then I'm told, well, actually, you're not allowed to have the flu right now. Come in.
Mm-hmm.
Magic. Absolutely fantastic. Love it.
It's an incredible system.
The people's president.
Yes. Greatest labor president in history.
Well, it's okay. I hear that he's locking up the Orange Man today, so everything's going to be fine.
No, it's going to happen tomorrow. Not that it'll matter.
Yeah. It's a new frontier in bad fucking posts from America because I don't want to read these lib fucks going off their nut about the Cheeto behind bars or whatever. I don't want it. I'm too tired.
That Brooklyn dad cunt is just going to go off like a fucking car.
Yes.
Oh my god, yeah.
Man, crazy. Well, I've got to say, you've managed, we opened by talking about dysfunction over here, and in a very microcosm sort of way, I think you've demonstrated that, for all that our railroads suck, apparently it can, in fact, get worse. So,
it sure can,
yes,
buddy.
Yeah, it's very bad over here for workers. It's bad if you have to interact with the railroad in any way. If you ship on a railroad, it's terrible. If you work for the railroad, it's awful. If you even if you just like looking at trains, I feel like that's getting worse too.
What you should if you're a train spotter, you should switch your hobby and instead start collecting dividends from the railroad.
Yes, that's been very
industry.
Good.
Yeah.
That's been an extremely lucrative business. The railroads are making so much money right now. That's one of the irritating things is when you talk about nationalization, and then someone's going to say, well, the railroads are extremely fiscally healthy. And it's like,
give a shit.
Yeah, but they also want to run a train directly into your house and kill you.
Yeah, I think
it's all about balance, right?
Whenever you talk about nationalization and people go, "Oh, but they're making so much money," it's like, yes, that's why they need to be nationalized.
Yes,
correct.
Let's make half as much money and plow it right back into infrastructure. But no, we can't do that. That's too much like that dreaded communism.
Well, I believe since 2010, the railroads have. They've paid out about $190 billion in stock buybacks and dividends.
Jesus
fucking Christ!
And that's if you wanted high-speed rail from New York City to Los Angeles, that's about the figure you would be looking at.
You know what? Fuck this whole Silicon Valley Bank. Do they have a railroad bank that can fall over sometime soon just to fuck with these people? That'd be good.
The problem with the railroads is all the money they're making is real.
Yeah, no, damn,
it's not fake like Silicon Valley. People actually pay them to perform services. I think by some measures, the Class 1 railroads are the most profitable businesses in the United States. Just because, again, they actually make a profit. They don't rely on weird investment tricks.
Yeah.
So less we used to build shit here has become we now move shit here, and
Yes.
that's profitable. Fantastic. Oh man. Well, I guess to do the whole burn after reading thing, what have we learned, if anything, from all of this?
Nationalize the fucking
You
railroads.
just got to nationalize the railroads. This is a public service. It serves a public interest. It's you can't let them keep getting away with all this shit. This business is not able to be regulated in a conventional sense. I mean, these railroads are so old and so institutionally enmeshed. I mean, they were here before you were born. They will be here long after you die, unless you just nationalize them. You can't take something with this amount of institutional momentum and expect to say there's going to be some quick fixes on here, and we're gonna have a better regulated industry. They've resisted regulation successfully for more than 200 years.
Yeah.
Damn.
Oh well.
Well, I guess that answers that then. Everything's shit and nothing's getting better anytime soon, but the solutions are obvious. So,
Yep.
I guess
Just the way we're used to.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, the more things change, right? Well, thank you both for coming on. That was
no problem.
it's always a pleasure, and that was
ending on a high note here.
Very enlightening hour of discourse there.
I will also mention that if folks are interested in sort of the left end of the discourse here, you should probably follow Railroad Workers United on Twitter, or at least read their stuff, because that this is sort of the left caucus in the railroad unions, which is pushing for things like railroad nationalization and stuff like that. So those are the people to look for. Is Railroad Workers United.
And if our listeners want to learn more about, terrible accidents that have happened through the rails, would you happen to know a podcast you could recommend for us that might have that kind of information?
No, fuck off.
Listen to There's Your Problem. It's a podcast about engineering disasters with slides. It's on YouTube, and it's on Podbean, and it's wherever fine podcasts are sold. It has Liam and myself on it.
And Alice.
And Alice, yes.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, I'd recommend.
Okay, cool. That's it from us then. You can get us, Praxis Cast, on Twitter. It is twitch.tv/PraxisCast for the streams, which I think will be returning to normality soon-ish. Just keep an eye on the Twitter for that.
Yeah.
And you can get merch at praxiscast.tmail.com. And we will see you all later on.
Aye.
All right.
Cheers.
See ya.
Thank you.
All right.